right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining Hungry Harvest Women of Impact panel. Every year, up to 40% of food goes to waste in this country, and 20 billion pounds of that is produce that's lost before it ever leaves the farm. It is more crucial than ever to discuss how our food choices impact climate change and how we can support our communities and influence others to become part of the green movement. This panel will be recorded, and my amazing colleague, Vanessa, will be moderating the chat under the name Hungry Harvest. So I encourage you to ask any questions you have throughout the discussion via chat. And if Vanessa is unable to answer them, we will get to them at the end. My name is Allison, and I'm from Hungry Harvest, and I will be moderating this panel. Hungry Harvest is a rescued produce delivery service on a mission to end food waste and eliminate hunger. If produce is too big, too small, too ugly, or there's just too much, grocery stores don't want it and it goes to waste. We help eliminate unnecessary and avoidable food waste by rescuing this produce, boxing it up, and delivering it to homes for less than grocery store prices. We've rescued over 25 million pounds of food from going to waste and provided access to over 1.6 million pounds of fruits and veggies to those who are food insecure. Now, please give a warm welcome to our panelists today, starting with Natalia Ortiz. Natalia is a director of development at Cleo Institute, where she spearheads the PR and funding needs of the nonprofit organization. A trained climate communicator, she is introducing new audiences to the urgency of acting on climate change and makes a compelling case to fund efforts to reach across many segments of society, from grassroots to grass top. Next, we have Danielle Todd. Danielle founded Make Food Not Waste in 2017 in response to learning about the effects of food waste on the environment, and currently serves as the executive director. Her love of food and the environment began as a child growing up on her grandparents' farm in New Jersey. She sees Make Food Not Waste as a vehicle to both benefit the environment and to help people eat better. We also have Aymara Lucero. In 2012, Aymara began Concerned Cook, where she educates the community on simple or original recipes, healthy habits, food facts, and sustainability tips. Concerned Cook also contributes to society by telling South Florida stories, teaching communities how to support local establishments and ethical brands, and emphasizing cultural culinary education. And last but not least, we have Dr. Michelle Nelson. Dr. Nelson is the founder of the Mama Tea Community Fridge Project. This project was nominated for the 2020 Sustainability Award in Philadelphia and has been featured on several news outlets. Dr. Nelson was a guest professor at Temple University, where she spoke about the importance of focusing on people first when it comes to planning and developing a neighborhood. Phew, these women are certainly impressive. Can everyone say hello really quickly before we begin?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm so eager to start this conversation. So let's jump right into it with our first question. So Natalia, can you elaborate on the current extent of food waste and how it contributes to climate change?
Yes, of course. And first, to take a step back to make sure everybody in the audience is on the same page. We're in a bit of a pickle if you haven't read the news. Global warming is real. You know, over 97% of climate scientists agree that it's happening, and we really do have to do more to lower our greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases like methane and carbon dioxide love heat. Think about them as heat trapping gases. So in our beautiful planet, if we had no greenhouse gases, we would be a frozen planet. But when we have too many greenhouse gases, we begin to kind of cook like a blanket. The thicker the blanket, the warmer you get. So nature has its own greenhouse gases that it produces. We produce it as well every time we exhale. But as humans, we also produce a lot of these heat trapping gases, whether it be through the electricity consumption, or in this particular case and for this webinar, with regards to our food systems. Actually, if food waste were a country, it would be the third largest polluter of these heat trapping gases. Think about that for a minute. Third largest polluter. Now, the incredible thing about what's going on is that, you know, sometimes we feel like the world is falling apart, but could it actually be that it's falling into our hands? We're actually waking up to realize that there are so many solutions out there that we could really begin to start today that would lower our greenhouse gas emissions. So in the United States, 40% of the food that we produce is thrown away before it even gets to our plate. 40% of our food. We have people that are going hungry, yet we're throwing perfectly delicious, edible, healthy food away, simply because it doesn't meet that visual criteria that we look for as consumers. So we have to think about that. As consumers, we create that demand. So we can really start doing a lot of things with regards to just changing our habits to reduce these greenhouse gas emissions, in particular methane being that big one that ends up every time the food goes into the landfill. It's a whammy to make our planet healthier again.
Wow. And what kind of habits do you recommend? Like, what are like top 1 to 3 habits would you recommend people to start their journey with this?
So at home,
Yeah.
really easy. Make a list of the food you need for the week. Do not go to the grocery store when you're hungry, because then you'll buy everything. So first, plan your meals. Second, something that's easy to do is just label your leftovers, because a lot of times we end up throwing our leftovers away because we're like, you know, we're not sure when we did that and we don't want to eat it because we're afraid it might be rotten. So just label the date of your leftovers so that when you open up that refrigerator, you know what to eat first, because that's what's going to spoil first. And then third, super easy, compost. It's so incredibly easy to compost. You can compost in your apartment. And you can compost in your home. It doesn't smell. It doesn't bring in all kinds of crazy rodents. I compost at home. Coffee is actually a great one to compost with because it eliminates the odor. Composting is strictly for fruits and vegetables, not animal meat. But those are 3 things we could do at home. And then as a member of the community, advocating for farmers markets. In Miami, there are food deserts, whole communities that don't have grocery stores within walking distance. So advocating for more farmers markets, community gardens, and then really, you know, also talking to elected officials about the food waste. There is a law that actually prevents you from getting sued if you donate food in good faith with regards to restaurants, supermarkets, and the hospitality industry. Yet a lot of people don't donate that food because they're afraid they're going to get sued. And there's literally a law that protects them. They just don't know about it. So down here locally, for example, my Publix, at the end of the day, all of those rotisserie chickens that didn't get sold, they don't even give them to the employees. They literally throw them away because they're afraid they're going to get sued. And that's perfectly good food that could go to feed their own employees or their community at large. So really educating our elected officials about food waste is a huge way to hopefully provide incentives for the community to become food donors and food rescuers.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up communities. Danielle, what recommendations do you have for communities on how to reduce their own food waste on top of what Natalia was saying?
Yeah, I think Natalia makes great points. You know, it certainly talking about it alone goes a really long way. So talking about it with your family, with your friends, your places where you work, where you dine, like Natalia said, you know, encouraging people to donate, and really talking with your elected officials in your cities and at the state level. There are a number of states that have taken real leadership in this, mostly on the East Coast and the West Coast, but there's a lot more work to be done. So really taking a look at what's happening in your state and seeing where you can plug in. It's really like any other issue. It's a matter of finding that one piece of it that really fires you up. So if it's about, you know, working with your child's school or working with your, teaching your kids and talking to your friends and family or getting politically active. It's really finding that one aspect of it that you really love and then just go in on all that. I mean, to Natalia's point, when we look at food waste reduction, it's one of the most effective ways to reduce climate change. And that's by research by Project Drawdown that says that. So it's something that we all interact with every day. And it's very tangible and easy for us all to do something about it. Unlike other large environmental issues like energy and transportation and things that are a little harder. This is very straightforward because we're all eaters and we all take part in it every day.
Definitely. Aymara, I know that especially during the pandemic, it can be hard for communities to come together and do these initiatives. So how can communities come together to be a part of this solution, especially during the pandemic?
Okay, I'm unmuted. I thought I was muted. I think what Natalia and Danielle touched upon as far as information has been key, especially I think we all saw that during COVID. For example, I started sharing information that maybe I wouldn't regularly share, like where people do food drop-offs. We have community fridges, community pantries. We have pantries that go to elementary schools that weren't able to do that anymore. So then they created a bus where people could come and it could be COVID safe. So everyone on their personal social media that everybody has access to can give out this information. And something else we can also do, I think, is become more aware as consumers of where food comes from. And sometimes it can seem overwhelming because it's not practical maybe to go every Sunday to a farmer's market, and it might not be a price, economic.
Created a pop-up grocery store. The Mama Tea pop-up grocery store is constructed. It looks like a tiny house, as per the neighbors say. And it just gives us an opportunity to have a bigger space with which to gather more food that needs to be rescued and can go into the store and then be given out to the refrigerators and also support neighbors in the neighborhood. So that's how we are working on our sustainability, taking part in being part of the solution.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. And I believe Allison is back.
I am
Allison,
so sorry. I don't know what happened. Of course, things happen when you're working from home, and this is just one of those things. I do apologize. Hopefully it doesn't happen again.
No worries at all. So you can hop back into your questions whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So for cooking, for in the kitchen, Aymara, how can we cook all more sustainably? Like, what are some steps that everyone can do in their kitchens?
Okay, so Natalia mentioned a lot of the tips that I was also going to say. So first in, first out would be one thing that's great. So putting the things that are the oldest that get forgotten in the back of the fridge, and then one day you find them and you find out that you haven't even opened them and they went bad. So putting them in the front so you can't miss them. So like not out of sight, out of mind. And things that maybe expire before other things, just being conscious of which vegetables are going to go to waste first, and maybe kind of have a plan around what you're going to cook and how you're going to cook it, not overbuying in the grocery store. So if going not hungry would help. So going to the grocery store with kind of a mental plan, not necessarily a list of how much food you're realistically going to eat in the next week, so you don't overbuy and then things end up going to waste. I buy, for example, zucchini, and I think of like 3 things I'm going to cook with it, because a lot of people get bored of eating the same thing every day. And that way you're utilizing that main ingredient without buying a bunch of other things that are going to go to waste. Let's see what else I wrote down. Shopping locally, if it's possible, shopping seasonally. So it's a lot easier for us to have the products that we grow during the season versus kind of forcing nature and overgrowing a bunch of other products that maybe don't even end up selling, which are going to contribute to food waste. And I like using all parts of the vegetables or the food if I can. So trying not to toss things that are unnecessary. Earlier, I was talking to the panelists about how I love lemons because you can use the zest, you can dry the lemon and use the powder, and you can obviously use the juice, and you can use it for desserts, for salty food, for raw, for cooked food, you can drink it. And I was telling them how I regrow scallions using the roots just with water. So a lot of those things can also help in when it comes to like a budget, like eating in a budget as well.
Definitely. And just speaking about those individual action steps, Natalia, like how does the concept of sustainability relate to you as an individual and your own self-care?
So the last 6 years have been the hottest on record, right? Since record keeping began, the hottest 6 years. And what we have to look forward to if we continue business as usual doesn't look very good for anybody under the age of 30 that you love. And so we really have to take a step back and think about, in my opinion, what does sustainability mean, right? Everyone has a kind of a different opinion about what that word is, and it's a catchy word to talk about. So for me, really, it's about learning to live in balance with nature. Instead of imposing ourselves on her as we have for so long, really starting to think about how can we live our day-to-day lives? What do I do in my day-to-day routine that can be in more balance with nature? And some of it takes a little bit of, it feels like sacrifice at first, but then you realize that you're doing it also for your health. So for example, eating less animal protein. You don't have to be a vegan or the perfect vegetarian, but just simply reducing the amount of animal protein in your diet makes a huge difference because that demand that you're creating is reduced. And also when you start incorporating these types of changes into your lifestyle, your family and your friends kind of become part of that journey with you. Reducing things like, somebody mentioned the packaging, paying attention to the packaging that food comes in. When you go to the grocery store, do you run to everything that's wrapped in plastic, or can you make, an effort to go to the stuff that isn't wrapped in plastic? 91% of plastic is not recycled. It comes from fossil fuels. It takes all of this energy to produce, and then we end up throwing it into our landfills and our oceans and destroying our biodiversity. There's studies that show that we've already consumed plastic. So really, being mindful and thinking about what that day-to-day is in your routine, and then how you can balance that better with nature so that at the end of the day, you're not imposing yourself as much as you once had. So it really is about self-reflection. In my case, I tried to be a vegetarian for a year. I did it for an entire year, but my kids and my husband didn't follow me in the journey. And that's okay. Today, I eat a little bit more of animal protein than I once did, but not the way I'll eat it maybe once every 2 weeks now. And my kids and my husband are okay with that.
Yeah, because our customer, Tracy Jones, was actually asking, how does a flexitarian diet support the environment? She switched to a flexitarian diet last year in an effort to reduce meat consumption without eliminating it completely, while also increasing her vegetable intake.
And that's a great thing. Eating one day of vegetarian meals cuts carbon approximately 7.5 pounds. So just one day out of the week, imagine if you could do it 2 or 3 days out of the week. And I applaud my vegan and vegetarian friends. They're amazing. But simple steps like that with regards to also supporting organizations that are doing their part to reduce greenhouse gases is an easy one. Like, for example, I am a Hungry Harvest customer. Food waste, I know, is a huge issue. So I get my fruits and vegetables from you guys, so things like that, just really looking at the demands for the products and services that you're consuming, and where can you change or shift things around to make them more balanced with nature.
Definitely. And then Dr. Nelson, I saw you wrote Meatless Mondays, so definitely great example if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I was just kind of like responding to what Natalia was talking about. At least there's a start. So Meatless Mondays, I know, is pretty popular thing that a lot of people will infuse in their weekly cuisine habits, which is, every little bit helps.
Definitely. And then to go on top of that, just we know that not everyone has access to fresh produce. So what are some ways that we can bring more fresh ingredients to communities?
Well, definitely partner with Hungry Harvest for sure to be able to just to start off, and other entities like them. We have a partnership with Whole Foods. We have a partnership with a group called Sharing Access. We have a partnership with Riverwards Produce. We have a partnership with Uplift Solutions. We are going to start a partnership with Phil Abundance. So being able to partner with larger entities, especially because they are the main culprits of food waste because of them being so large, so the aptitude for them to waste is higher, gives them an opportunity to be able to share the love. So if you're able to partner with them and let them know, hey, we're doing the right things with the food, we are on the ground with the neighbors, with the community, we know what they like. Let us have an opportunity to have those items, take those items off your hands, and we'll go into the community and be able to distribute. The U.S.'s the food distribution problem is it's huge, and we all need to be more cognizant of our food footprint, which is a thing, and it has a lot to do with some of the things we mentioned earlier in this panel, like just in terms of how far food has to travel and things of that nature. So I would say that one way to get more access to fruits and vegetables, especially in communities, is for mutual aid groups, especially to partner with larger groups so that you can literally bring the food to the people. Our motto is that solidarity, not charity. We work in a very horizontal construct as opposed to vertical. So let's do this.
I like that.
To add to Dr. Nelson, one of the things we can all do is place of business, your children's school. If you're a university student, there's a cafeteria there somewhere. So really going in and talking to, for example, if you're a university student, or you work at your business, or your child's school, and just saying, what are you doing with this food at the end of the day? Because simply you have to pay. Here it's waste management. You have to pay waste management to lug that food out. So it's costing them money to throw away perfectly edible food. So simply going and talking to them and saying, hey, can your cafeteria at the end of the day just package that food up and partner with one of these local organizations, or even a place of worship that they could take that food to, so that it could become a community food opportunity, so there's so many touch points in our day-to-day that we don't even think about, where you could potentially become a food rescuer. So think about that day-to-day interaction that you're having. Where is that food coming from, and can you be a food rescuer for that food?
Can I just add to your comment there, Natalia, which is spot on. We also work with Postmates. So Postmates has a program where they will redirect a driver. So not only is the driver possibly delivering your lo mein, but he or she may have a box of Granny Smith apples that are endangered of being wasted, and can drop off the Granny Smith apples as well as deliver lo mein to a neighbor in the neighborhood. So we've partnered with Postmates, and we've been able to tap into many local Philly businesses, from bagels to produce to everything in between. And so, yes, to Natalia's point, I just remembered that yeah, Postmates, we've been able to do that. So again, another partnership.
I actually had a comment that I mentioned in the chat. You can seek out things in your community that maybe not every community, but for example, in Miami during COVID, there's an organization, it's a business, it's a digital market that started named Vecinos Market, and they only have small local businesses that sell things that are handcrafted or ethically produced, a lot of cheesemakers, farms, but then also other things that you can find somewhere like Etsy, and they will deliver it to you the next day. You know, the owner literally goes to pick up everything and then deliver it around, which may not be as great when it comes to like carbon emissions and things like that, but they are a great resource to support local when you can't leave your house, for example.
Amazing. Danielle, I know that we had a question from our Hungry Harvest customer, Judy McCord, and she said along these same lines, what can be done on the community level to connect hungry folks with food from all over the country and world? And also if you have any other partners that you want to add on, like the Postmates, et cetera, too.
You know, most cities will have pretty good food rescue operations. We here in Detroit have a really strong one called Forgotten Harvest, but we also have another group called Food Rescue US, and I believe they're in Miami as well. They're in a number of cities around the country. And what's really interesting about their model is that they're kind of a nook and cranny type food rescue organization where they rely on volunteers and their own transportation, and they'll go to the smaller places like the restaurants or the small retail. So perhaps the places where the larger food rescue organizations can't necessarily get into with their big trucks. So they're going to the grocery stores and the arenas. This Food Rescue US is that smaller scale. But what's great about them is that it really provides an opportunity for the community to be engaged and be drivers and help pick up that food and route it to local food pantries or other food distributors, and really have that sense of participation, but also get to know the food donors and the food recipients. So that's pretty cool. And really, you know, in cities like where we are, a lot of the food that's rescuable is going to come from restaurants. So you need those kind of small, the cars that can just get into those smaller places. So if you don't have a food rescue chapter where you are, consider starting a chapter. And you can be a site director and sign up volunteers. It's all in an app. It allows you to connect, again, with your community and those food donors and the food recipients. Otherwise, I would say another interesting app is, it's called Olio, O-L-I-O, and that's also not in many cities yet in the US. It's based out of the UK, but that's an app that connects your residents to each other. So if you're going on vacation and you have a bunch of tomatoes that you know that you're not going to be able to eat in time, they won't be okay once you get back, you can put them on the app, and then some of your a neighbor or someone can come pick it up from you, and it's at no cost, so you can't charge for it. But what's interesting about that is that food waste in the home is the biggest source of food waste in the food system. And a lot of that comes from us not getting to eat, not being able to eat it in time. And so if we can have that outlet to be able to donate that food, it provides somewhere for that to go. So if you're really interested in that and you want to bring Olio to your neighborhood or community or your city, and you reach out to them, they can help you get that set up. Obviously, it works best if you have a critical mass of people that are participating. But other than that, your local pantry can probably take in much of the food that you have from home, especially if it's fresh produce. If you grow in your garden in the summer and you grow too much, I say summer because we're in Detroit. We don't grow all year like some people, some people in Florida, but For those of us who have a very short growing season, if you grow too much in your backyard, you can donate that oftentimes to pantries as well. So really it's a matter of just finding those outlets to be able to move the food and make sure it gets to people.
Yeah. And then speaking of in the home, do you have any other additional top tips and tricks for eliminating food waste in the kitchen?
I do, yes. So I saw a couple people ask about date labels, and date labels is one of the biggest reasons why people throw food away, that and not eating their leftovers. So with date labels, they're often interpreted as expiration dates, and they're really just more of an inventory management system for retail. So it's not really meant for you. It's really meant for the store to be able to know when they should pull the item. So when it says use by or sell by, it means, or best by, those all mean that that's the sort of peak freshness or peak taste, but that doesn't necessarily mean that 1 hour later, the next day at 1 o'clock, it doesn't just automatically switch to going to kill you. So really, when it comes to anytime you see a date on something, use your senses. Does it look bad? Does it smell bad? Does it, I guess it wouldn't hear bad, but you could taste a little bit. But if if it smells okay and it looks okay, it's probably okay, at least for a few days after the date. If you're at all concerned, and I know someone asked that question, and you Google, how much longer can I consume items past certain dates, the USDA has really great information. Your local, if you have local extension offices like the master gardeners and that sort of thing, they have a lot of great information and that you can trust, and you can really feel confident in it that you'll be safe if you consume it afterwards.
Amazing. I love all these resources that you're providing too. Does anyone else have any really good resources, apps, things like that to add on to Danielle's list?
I put in the chat Too Good To Go. It's a fairly new app and it works really well. Opportunities for you to acquire food that the restaurant or any other shop that is in the food business has for the day, and you literally can go on the app and sign up to pick up that food, and when you arrive, you're already signed up and they'll actually give it to you. So it's Too Good To Go, and it's an app.
Amazing. Yeah. And just to bring it back to what we were saying about before, and we have been saying the word sustainability a lot, and like Natalia said, it really means something different to everyone. So I would just love to hear what sustainability means to each and every one of you, and what that word means to you.
I'll go first. I think for me, it means long term. And if we're going to survive as a species long term, we need to protect our resources and use them better and not waste them and not get to the point where we have no resources left. So I would say long term and protecting our resources.
To me, sustainability means self-sustaining. So like how we spoke about eating seasonally and just not fighting nature on how we're supposed to fit into nature. To me, self-sustaining systems, which are kind of like, I guess, how our grandparents used to live, or great-grandparents, little things to just turn back time in a way, because we've become society is just very disposable. We use a lot of things, we dispose of them. The same thing with food, the same thing with a lot of things, just for the sake of convenience, but just kind of reframing our mind to having more sustainable systems, at least in our home, we can start, and then we can move to the community and to our workplaces or school places and things like that.
When I think of the word sustainability, I think of just living and existing. What are we going to do to better the way that we are living, just our living practices? Because clearly, with everything that's happening environmentally and so on, there needs to be a change. And it's up to all of us to make sustainability cool again. So what can you do to gain the young people to come in and be involved? I can say that for our IG, which is Mama Tea Fridge, we use branding a lot to reach young people. We have several school groups that volunteer at our community fridges, and we're adding new groups all the time. So I talk with principals and teachers and parents, specifically because 4 of our fridges are located at schools, attached to school facilities. So, you know, kind of what Aymara said as well, sort of her last point, how can we change our living practices? But then you've got to attract young people to be involved. So you've got to be involved with what they're involved in. And that's something I think needs to be included in just making sustainable living cool again.
Yes, I definitely agree. Natalia, how are you influencing, and how is Cleo influencing others to become part of this green movement?
You know, I always start my presentations with one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Nelson Mandela, and it's, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And it really just comes down to getting people to understand first what's happening, the science behind the climate crisis. How is it impacting me personally? Because unfortunately, people don't really begin to act until they realize that it's them, that you know, that the impact is happening to them. So how does it impact me personally? And then solutions. What can I do as an individual? And then what can I do as a community member? So we really focus on educating people, because the crazy thing is the solutions are there. For absolutely every sector that's responsible for greenhouse gases. I believe it was Danielle that mentioned Drawdown. That's actually an organization we partner with. The solutions are there. It's just a matter of getting people to understand them, why they matter, how they can get involved. And then, incorporating, really important, that civic engagement, because, it's about what I can do at home, but then also, what are my elected officials doing? Because at the end of the day, hurricanes, and I say, because I live in Florida, don't care who we voted for. So we really need to become a lot more involved in this topic, as human beings, as people that love, we all have young people we love, and we want to be able to protect their future. And then also, without leaving them behind, biodiversity. We're going through the middle of the 6th mass extinction. And I had a little girl once ask me, well, why do I care about biodiversity? And I said, because without it, we wouldn't exist. So we're really at a tipping point. And we need to do all that we can. And we have the tools in place. We just need to be able to act with them with a lot more urgency. So as the Cleo Institute, we have programs that are educational to get people up to speed on the science, impacts, and solutions. And then we have advocacy programs to help people how to become climate speakers in their community, how to advocate for change at a policy level with elected officials, how to write op-eds in your, for your newspaper. So really, there's so many things that we can be doing that, some of us are doing. And so it's, it's an exciting time, because I really do think that if COVID has taught us anything, it's that Mother Nature gave us a timeout. And we really now need to, moving forward, not return to a normal, because what we were doing before was not normal. We were not living normally. We were living, putting an incredible amount of pressure on Mother Nature. And we need to go back to a better normal, a sustainable normal, one where we live in balance, and we start taking responsibility for our demand. Every time, we have to think about, just to make a little connection, when, the more animals we eat, all of that rainforest that we see in the Amazon that gets burned, and we're all watching on the news, all hysterical, thinking, why is this happening? Or, that's meat consumption, that's cattle, for the most part, ranches, that's why our Amazon's getting destroyed. When we see the wildfires in California or in Australia, that's us. We're creating that. even the polar vortex that happened in Texas. All of this is connected. The climate crisis is connected to absolutely everything that we care about, from our health to our economy to our national security. And so it's up to us to get the job done, and we have the tools in place. So now we just need to do them.
Yes, definitely. How about you, Danielle? How can you influence others to become part of the green movement?
We thought about that long and hard when we started in 2017. When we started the organization, it was really our initial intent was to inspire people to waste less at home, and our approach has really been to make it as fun as we can. And there's no shaming people. There's no doom and gloom. Along the way, I came across some really interesting research that said that it almost backfires when you emphasize how much waste there is, because we're social creatures and we want to do what everyone else is doing. And so if you tell people that everyone is wasting, they think, oh, well, that's the norm and I should just waste as well. So what we try to emphasize is that no, the norm is to not waste, and the norm is to use up everything you buy. And we just try to have a lot of fun with it. So we, before COVID, we were holding large scale events in downtown Detroit where we just invite everybody to come, and it's free. And we source food that would otherwise go to waste. And we have chefs that make food that's delicious, and people eat it and they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this food is going to be thrown away. That's crazy. And we just try to show that, yeah, there's this food is important and food matters, and there's a lot we can do with it. And then we also use that opportunity to talk to people about things like date labels and leftovers and storing your food properly and composting and all those kind of important behaviors. And then also introducing people to everyone in the community that was also doing anything related to food waste reduction. So we basically just like to throw parties about it, and that's worked for us. And I think, to probably along the lines of what Dr. Nelson is doing, it's, you do have to make it cool and fun and sexy. And if you try to talk to people about that, it's, to make them feel bad about it, or just like one more thing they have to do on their long to-do list, they're just less likely to be excited about it and less likely to do it. So that's been our approach, and so far that seems to be working for us here. And yeah, we just try to have as much fun with it as we can.
Definitely. Aymara, I know that you wanted to share a tip as well.
Yes, just to piggyback off what Danielle was saying, I think that finding small ways for people to start taking those steps is how I found that I can get to people, because I don't even know that my friends care about food waste. And the other day I went to dinner and they were like, I don't want to throw out this tomato in front of you, but I'm not going to eat it. So what do I do? And I'm not going to shame them, because then there's a resistance. And when you give people huge goals, like let's be zero waste by 2022, they're going to be like, you're crazy, because I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, okay, but what if you start by not using plastic wraps and then using beeswax wraps or silicone wraps and washing them like you wash your dishes? So that seems a little bit more accessible, and hopefully it gets the momentum going. So what I did tell them is I'll take the tomato home and I'll make a sauce, because it's soft and I'm not going to eat the soft tomato raw. Most likely I don't like it, but I can make a sauce with it, or I can freeze it, or I can make it in the oven with something else. So I feel like just giving people small ways into which they can become interested. That's something that I also like to do with Concerned Cook. I've been pairing up with seafood sustainability companies, like I was telling the panelists before we started. And a lot of people don't want to eat kelp, or they don't care that kelp, has all these regenerative properties and how it can help with carbon and waste and all these other things. But maybe if you do a cooking class and it's a little bit fun, and then we sneak some information in there, people are more likely to consume some of it, even if it's not in a conscious way. And, there's 54 people here and there was 60 people. So everyone can do little things and then they can share them on their networks and then get somebody else maybe interested in Googling something. And that's how we can expand this, I think.
I'm so glad that you brought up that it can be overwhelming for people to be, you know, with the zero waste and whatnot. So does anyone have any tips for if you're just starting out? What are some of your top tips that you can start immediately that are pretty easily to implement in your daily life?
Well, this is something we, when we talk to the community about donating, we always get questions about what do I donate? How do I donate? And, you know, one of the things that we encourage, and we mention this all the time, the way that Natalia donates might be different from what Aymara, how Aymara donates, which will be different from how Danielle donates. But at least you are doing something. And that's all that really matters. So I think people, especially during the pandemic, were looking for ways to be useful because we were all at home, shut down. I can't see grandma and all the like. So being able to communicate that effectively and let people know that, yes, we let our neighbors know, we let our community members know, whatever you want to do, however you feel, it's okay, because every little bit comes together to help the whole. So that's something that needs to be, I think, definitely communicated on a consistent basis, which we do that through many different colorful ways. One of our taglines with the fridge is take what you need, leave what you don't. A lot of the kids like that, and it, you know, it sounds great. It's to the point. It doesn't have a lot of explanation. And then it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So just starting at again, and I think we've all been championing the same message, which is, you know, keeping things at a basic level, a simple level, so that people cannot feel intimidated as to how they can be useful.
Great. And yeah, so I just want to do a quick speed round with all of our panelists since we are almost at the end. If anyone has any questions for our panelists, please feel free to write it in the chat. And I know that we talked about this before we started, but just go over what your favorite piece of produce is and why.
I'll start. Mine is tomatoes because I grew up with my grandparents on their farm in New Jersey, and when I smell warm tomatoes, it makes me think of my grandpa when he would grow tomatoes in the greenhouse.
Mine is also tomatoes. I mentioned to the panel that I visited Lippman Produce last week and have a new appreciation for tomatoes. I loved them before, but you know, Lippman is the main food grower of tomatoes. So they source tomatoes to Chipotle and McDonald's and Subway and all the like. So I saw the behind the scenes, sauteed tomatoes, chopped tomatoes, strained tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, all kinds of tomatoes. So I'm glad that tomatoes has a happy home. So I'll say tomatoes as well.
I'll go next. So as I mentioned before when I was talking, lemon is I think the vegetable or fruit, I'm not sure. Somebody help me if it's a vegetable or a fruit. I think it's a fruit, right? That I would choose because you can use every part of it. The zest is amazing. And I think that nobody uses zest enough, but it just adds so much value to any meal. Right now, it's great for immune health. It's great for a lot of things when it comes to health. And you can use it every way, and I think everyone can enjoy lemon. I don't know anybody that doesn't like lemon even a little bit. So that's my favorite.
And I'm onion. I love the onion. I put it on everything from eggs to pasta. I think raw or cooked, I think they're fabulous, and I absolutely love them. And you know, if I can leave you with this kind of nugget, It's never about being the perfect anything, because we're all human. It's about trying our best. And so, you know, different people are in different parts of their journey with regards to where they are in their, you know, some people are just beginning in their quest with sustainability, others are far into it. But it's just about continuing and always evolving and always thinking about, well, what can I do next? You know, and food is one of those that's an easy one where we can all, you know, start today. April is around the corner. It is Earth Month, April. So maybe for those of you in the audience, make April a month where you start. You know, maybe think about reducing the amount of meat that you eat. So if you eat it 4 or 5 times a week, maybe reduce it, you know, once or twice, and incorporate, you know, have some fun and learn more about those vegetarian and vegan menus that maybe some of you are curious about. If you are going out to restaurants, maybe order from the menu the vegan or vegetarian option. So, you know, you can, an easy one to start your journey with is food, and continue with it. You know, if you're all the way in there, start composting.
I have another one. I think one thing we can do the next time we go to restaurants is ask maybe where the fish comes from, or a lot of restaurants like to market when things are local or where they come from, but many of them don't. They just don't think about it. They don't think that it's important to anyone. So maybe if we ask if something is made there, if we ask if it's sourced locally, it's something that they can start mentioning, so then it raises awareness, but also now we let them know that there's a demand for a certain thing that we're looking for as a consumer. And as we know, companies like money, and I know a lot of companies that are spending more on cardboard or compostable packaging instead of plastic, just because they think that there's a consumer demand. They think there's a trend. They think young people are spending more money on it. And I think that's how we also get elected officials to pay a little bit of attention, and business owners.
Amazing. And I just want to end this panel on a high note. So I know that we are all doing a lot to make progress fighting climate change. So what is the one thing that makes all of you hopeful for the future?
That's an easy one for me. Young people. Wow, you know, we have a group called Gen Cleo, but you know, young people are incredible. The teenagers and the young adults that, you know, they're so well versed in this subject. They're motivated. They're engaging politically. You know, if what I see, like from Greta Thunberg onward, you know, if I was nowhere near that when I was their age, and you know, I'm in my 40s now, so I see the young people, and I really have hope, because they understand this issue, and they're really doing a lot with it, and so I really think that this is a youth movement, or a youth-driven movement, and I, you know, I think whenever I'm feeling a little bit nervous, I think of them, and I know there's hope.
I'll say communication. I love the advances in communication, getting the word out there, social media. I mean, a lot of us probably wouldn't exist to this level without social media and all those wonderful tools now that you can use to connect with people. I know that it was very important for us just to the way that we scaled, and the media attention that we received about the community fridges, and that has helped us immensely. So the ways that we can communicate gives me great hope for the future. Things are being documented, filmed, posted. Awareness is on fleek, as we say, when it's out of control. And I love it. I love the highlight of with communication. So I'll say that's my hope.
Perfect. Yes, that's a great place to end. What a wonderful conversation we had today. Thank you so much for everyone who attended. Please follow and support these women. If we want to continue the conversation, please reach out to us. And I can put up their social channels if that's okay with all the panelists. I'll leave them on the screen so then we can continue these conversations and you can give them a like and a follow. Thank you so much for attending, and let's give a big thank you to our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to speak with us, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having us all.
Thank you.
Bye.
This was really great. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Yeah, I was like taking notes and I already like started sending emails to my coworkers.
This will also be recorded too. So yeah, great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Where would you get the recording?
We will most likely send it out. We will definitely communicate that with you guys. I will send out an email with everyone that attended today, and we can send you over the link. Hopefully, because my feed cut out like right in the beginning, hopefully it's saved. So I'll get most of it, hopefully. So
Thank you.
And will you have other events like this?
yeah, definitely. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know too.
Yes,
I would love to hear your feedback too. I think that would be wonderful. So
Exactly, and ahead of time so we can pass it over to other friends as well.
yeah, no, definitely. I definitely appreciate that. And we'll definitely do some stuff in the future too. So thank you so much for attending.